This Wageningen Experience Day brings WUR colleagues and alumni together. Numerous topics and research areas will be discussed. They sometimes seem separate, but are really connected. One of the most important challenges we face is to reduce the impact of our food systems. Less waste and a more plant-based diet is a way to look after our planet without sacrificing much. Did you know that duckweed is a novel food? Welcome to Wageningen Talks.
Thank you, Sjoukje Heimovara, the president of the executive board of Wageningen University and Research since this summer. Welcome here, everybody in Impulse. Good to see you here, and welcome also everyone online. We have alumni from 54 different countries joining us today, so that's great. Welcome also here. This first Wageningen Talks, we have 3 guests. To my right, Tinka Murk. She will explain the important role of the sea. Ricardo da Silva Torres will explain the role of artificial intelligence in Wageningen here today. And Remco de Kluizenaar, he is the artist in residence of Wageningen University, and he will give his artist's view on the protein transition. So very exciting topics here today. Welcome. And I would also like to introduce, over there, Olaf Rhijnsburger to you. Olaf, you are not an alumnus yet. You look way too young for that. But you are a student here at Wageningen University. What do you study?
Yes, indeed. I'm not an alumnus yet here. I'm a student in plant sciences, focusing on genetics and health. And I'm really excited to join everyone here today in Impulse.
Yeah, you're my co-host today. You will monitor all the questions that will come up from everyone watching online. And of course, if there are questions here in the audience, you will run towards them and ask them. Yeah, so great to have you here with us, Olaf. Thank you. So let's start with my guest here, Tinka Murk. Welcome. You are professor in marine animal ecology. And Sjoukje Heimovara, she mentioned the reduction of the impact of our food systems. And I guess we never talk about sea then. How can we do that when it comes to the sea? We always talk about land, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to realize that also for the Netherlands, we have a lot of national property, that's the sea. And we don't have much attention for that. We are still collecting food as hunter-gatherer, mainly from the sea. And Wageningen is very famous, of course, upgrading agricultural systems, getting more productivity. Nowadays, doing more integrated biology in these food systems. So at sea, we have huge transitions. Of course, the climate change has huge impact at the sea. 90% of the extra heat that is produced is already taken up by the sea, and it has consequences. 40% of the CO2 we produced extra is taken up by the sea. So we have big changes in the sea. Biodiversity loss, also because of uses, overfishing, mining sand, mining other things. And we have this energy transition, and we are in a hurry because we want more energy from sea. But of course, it has huge impact. You start building, you start bringing in sounds, the shipping is continuing. So it looks like it's all a loss, but if we do things smart and realize there is ecology that can help us, I think we can gain a lot. And Wageningen should contribute there.
Yeah. Are you worried about the sea? Should we take better care of it?
Yes, because nature on land and in the sea uses opportunities. But we have taken away a lot of opportunities. And nature can adapt to climate change, unless it would be so hot that it can't survive. But it will change, it will adapt, if we give it the opportunity to adapt. And that's what we need to do to be able to also use the sea for our harvest and other things.
Yeah. Let's talk about where you see room for improvement, and how do you do research about that? So you see a lot of challenges, and how can we improve that, and how do you do research?
So what we study is how marine animals adapt to their environment, and it's mostly changing environment. So what you see is that animals like oysters that used to live in the North Sea have to adapt to warmer climate. And it could be that other shellfish are better in adapting that. So we use sensors to measure how the animals are doing. So for instance, the cockle, which is a Dutch shellfish, will need more energy to survive if it gets warmer. And new species that naturally can come from France, the Mediterranean, feel happier. They don't need so much energy. So they will be the winners, and the cockles may have to go north. That's a natural transition. You shouldn't be sad about it, because if the new ones wouldn't come, it would be really empty in the sea. If the cod can't stand the heat anymore, then the hake will come. You should be happy for that. So things change. That's the only certainty you have. Everything will change.
Yeah, you're trying to find out which animals can adapt easily, and maybe also how to find out which animals can survive more easily.
Yeah, you can facilitate. And for instance, we have the reef, the coral reefs. We have a big project on reef restoration. So there are areas where the reefs are destroyed by unsustainable fishing methods, dynamite fishing or dragging nets over the reef. As soon as you bring structures back, life can come back. You can plant corals and the corals will grow. It's beautiful. However, if you know things may become hotter, you don't want the bleaching, because then, there's no use restoring the reef. So we are now studying both in Wageningen as well as in Kenya at our research station. What makes corals more or less sensitive for changing temperatures? So you could have a kind of animal breeding, like we did for centuries with husbandry. And then select also locally the more resilient coral species and plant those back.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned that it's kind of getting crowded at sea, right? We're also looking for renewable energy on sea. We're building a lot of wind turbines. How would that affect sea life?
It definitely changes the opportunities that you provide. So you bring back structures that were removed by a century of bottom trawling or even longer. So structures like stones that were brought there by glaciers are all taken out. Now you bring back structures. That's an opportunity. So animals can come back and live on them again. So of course it will change, but it's the nature that determines what will be there. We can't determine it for nature. And I think if we choose structures wise, if we would reintroduce the flat oysters and some other organisms, nature can flourish again. And
so it's also an opportunity if you do it right.
But it will change. You cannot keep it the same. And I think there should be areas in the North Sea, large enough areas, where you do nothing. Just let it go. Don't touch it, don't go there, don't harvest. Let it go, and then it can develop a source for life. Yeah,
and you would be also very interested probably to find out what's going to happen if you do nothing in that area, right? For research purposes.
Yeah, we have now the fish sensing box under development, where we can place a device at the bottom of the sea, and it of course contains cameras, but also hydrophones, because fish sing. Make sounds, they talk like birds do. So if you hear a blackbird, you know it's a blackbird or a great tit. It could be the cod or the eel. And we have a system that you can take samples of water, and in those samples there is a bit of DNA from the animals that have been swimming there. So then you can see what animals, so it takes automatically a sample, and you can see what animals are coming back, are using that area. And it's really a CSI at sea. I love that.
CSI at sea. Yeah. Wow, looks great. Sounds great. Tinka, where does your fascination with the sea come from?
That it's so dynamic, so unseen. I think it's a pity we can't go there, but with new technologies you can share the beauty. That if I make pictures around shipwrecks and show them to my family, they are amazed that it can be so colorful. Those places are like flower pots where life gets the opportunity to flower.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful, it's so colorful, and it's so nice to share that. And that can motivate people to realize biodiversity is also relevant for the sea.
Yeah.
And it's not well developed in our North Sea at the moment. It's really, it should be much better to have a resilient, productive sea. But it's all there. And if you improve it a little bit, within a year, let's say, even especially after 10 years, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that gives energy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to Olaf, my co-host. Olaf, are there already questions for Tinka?
Yeah, we have many people joining us online. One question that was asked you were already talking about biodiversity at sea. When we're talking about biodiversity on land, you usually hear a lot about certain tipping points. Are those tipping points also relevant at sea, or is the sea so resilient that it can restore itself? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There are definitely tipping points at sea at this moment, because we have so little reefs that can filter the seawater. At the seafloor, like 30 meters deep, you don't have much light. But once there would be a lot of filtering again, so like mussels and other organisms, they take particles out of the water. So then the light can go to the seafloor, then you get plants again, seaweed, and then you get a totally different system, like with the lakes where this happened as well. So we should facilitate the recovery, and I think you get a tipping point back. And the good thing is, there will be still introduction of new species, and it could be nasty species or beautiful species, but if you have a rich food web, rich biodiversity, there will be animals making use of this upcoming organism, and it will be part of the system. So you don't get a pest. Otherwise you get a tipping point. So if you would have a lot of jellyfish eat small fish, so there will be no big fish to eat the big jellyfish. That type of relationship, yes, it's really important.
Yeah. More questions, Olaf?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about our human impact on the ocean, one recent example that I think we all have heard about is the explosions at the Nord Stream pipeline. I was wondering, I read a lot about the impacts on the atmosphere, but what kind of impacts do such events have on the ocean?
It will especially have a local impact. I must say I was happy it was a gas pipeline and not an oil pipeline, because oil is much more nasty for the sea life. I'm not talking about what's happening up in the air, but most of the gas will have gone up. So locally, you had really bad luck, because the explosion will kill or stun fish, and then others may eat them, so they may be lucky, or fish will be deaf, because fish sing and they hear. But let's say probably after 10 kilometers, it will easily recover. So it had a bad impact locally, but animals will come back. As soon as the gas was finished and it's silent, fish will come and have a look and see if they can live there. And they will take over and it will grow back. So it will be a temporarily bad situation, and you can be lucky if you were far away.
Does anybody have a question here for Tinka? Yes, I see a question over there. I'm going to give you the microphone.
Yeah, I was wondering, you were talking earlier that within a year, within 10 years, you can already see that there's some recuperation. Would you then say that seas are maybe more resilient than land?
No, I wouldn't say seas are more resilient, but they are more open. So as soon as there is a source of life to come back, so in sea there are many animals that sit there, like corals or oysters. They cannot move. So once they sit there, they cannot go to this new location, but their larvae will. So and for instance, the flat oyster larvae can go up to 10 kilometers. So if you make this new artificial reef, it's an opportunity, and you need the source of larvae to be close enough that the larvae can reach it and start living there. If that's the case, and we have, for instance, an experimental reef in a rich area in the Blokkendam, so it's close to the coast. I went there half a year later, I could hardly see the structure, because there is so much life that can go there, it is occupied and it's beautiful. So the source should be there. That's why it's important to have very rich closed areas with nice habitats, and from there the animals can go there as larvae and settle.
I see a question over there.
You're talking a language that I understand quite well because I'm a landscape architect, so you can make things that gives opportunities to new life. And I think we have a lot of experience in the Netherlands with that expertise. So are you communicating with those kind of disciplines?
Yes, and of course I also read the resource and speak to colleagues, so I am inspired by land-based things and also the developments. I hope at sea we won't go through the industrial animal culture that we have on land, because I rather go forward to the kipster and the zonvarken approach, not have classical aquaculture where you put feed in and then everything gets deteriorated and it's stressful, the animal welfare is impaired. So we should skip that part, because we already know that if you use ecology, make things in balance and not harvest only one species, but more in balance, different species, you can gain so much more. You can have more protein, more money, and a lot more biodiversity from the same hectare compared to what we do now. And also the rewilding that is being introduced, it's the same principle. Nature will use the opportunities, and it will be the nature that fits the current conditions. Don't try to garden and say, but I want this species. I'm very much for the sea against dictating what species are good. If you would say, if there is rich habitat, diversity, large enough, connectivity, a full food web.
Should be a complete system.
Yeah, great predators, large-size predators. We will see what they are, but then you know it's good. And we shouldn't try to garden as we do on land because people like it. And that's okay, but that's not rewilding.
I'm a Wageninger because I enjoy every single aspect of this campus.
I think I'm a Wageninger because I like being part of something larger than myself and being surrounded by people that are passionate.
I like being a Wageninger because I like the freedom and the trust we have in the lab.
Ricardo da Silva Torres, professor in data science and artificial intelligence. You're originally from Brazil, professor in data science since the summer of 2021. Do you already feel a Wageninger?
Well, I had the opportunity to live in Wageningen in 2018, so for me it's coming back home. So that's how I feel. So
yeah, and what is a Wageninger according to you?
Well, it's try to solve hard problems together. So this is what we're doing here, and this is what I'd like to continue doing in my career. So I came to Wageningen to help this university to make progress in science through the use of technology, especially those connected with data and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, you're one of 3 new professors in AI. Maybe it's new for everyone here in the audience that Wageningen has AI professors. What's your mission here in Wageningen?
Well, we would like to explore the possibilities of using data science and AI technologies in the Wageningen domain. And what I mean by that, I mean to develop and advance the state of the art in data science and artificial intelligence, and what we produce can be explored in the Wageningen domain to advance the state of the art, in life sciences, in food systems, in understanding, complex relationships among different kinds of variables. So this is what we'd like to do, how we can embrace this kind of technology in new ways of doing science.
Yeah. So how does it work? Do you walk around campus and ask researchers here in Wageningen, what do you need? How can I help with artificial intelligence?
Well, it seems to me that this is a topic that is still a little bit new in Wageningen. I think there are a lot of ongoing initiatives, very successful, but still there is room for teaming up, for finding, good problems to work together. And I'm working on that right now, how we can define research problems in which demand advancing the state of the art in data science and AI, and at the same time, we can contribute to advance the state of the art in the other domains. I have been teaming up with groups in different science groups, in different departments, and hopefully, sometime soon we're going to start defining solid research agenda in which we can move forward with those findings.
Yeah. Could you give an example already?
Yes, sure. For example, I have been embedded in the farm technology group, and we're going to be involved with a project in which we're going to investigate new food production systems that can benefit from AI. But the approach that you're going to use is to try to embed ethical, legal, and social aspects in that AI. So how we can ensure that the decision-making process that's going to be made out of the AI system can be aware of ethical, legal, and social aspects. For example, suppose that you want to recommend a treatment for an animal. So sometimes you need to take into account the costs involved. Sometimes you need to take into account issues related to animal welfare. So how to weight that in a proper way so that we can acknowledge both aspects in the recommendation process. So this is the kind of problem that you're going to investigate together this fall, starting this fall.
So it could help with really complex issues, with decision making, but I guess it's really difficult to model for ethical arguments, right? How do you put animal welfare in an algorithm?
Yeah, this is true. And Wageningen, I think it's a nice place, to tackle this kind of problem because you have rich domain knowledge. And this is essential for us, who have this kind of background in computer science. We need domain knowledge in order to understand and design properly, our technologies. And we need to understand the results. We need to be sure that what we have found makes sense by taking into account, the research questions defined in the domain. And in the example that I provided concerning, ELSA aspects, we will be engaged in a kind of multidisciplinary team involving philosophers, experts in law. We're going to have a very rich environment to discuss.
I can imagine there's a lot of data here at Wageningen University. How do you deal with that? So you need a lot of data, of course, if you want to do a proper AI. How do you make sure you get all the data from researchers? Are you also advising them to put it in a more central place, or is it also about getting better data, better databases?
Yes, definitely. There are a lot of initiatives connected to that. I'm also connected with the Wageningen Data Competence Center, who has been doing an amazing work on teaming up with different groups so that they can pay attention to how to organize data, how to make data available, how to make data findable so that we can, explore in this knowledge discovery process, how we can reuse the data, how we can reuse models developed. So this is something that is relevant, and the university has been investing a lot in how to improve the way we manage data. So, Tinka gave a lot of examples about monitoring systems. So there is a huge investment on new technologies for sensing, for producing, for collecting data. Data coming from different sources, data which are intrinsically complex in the sense that there are hard relations between among the data that we cannot anticipate beforehand, but understanding, how this data is organized, trying to find out good ways for discovering those relationships.
Yeah, you're trying to find new patterns in all that data, right?
Understand trends, patterns is something that we can do, and you can help, researchers, scientists in Wageningen to do better, faster, and hopefully leading to better and more impactful findings.
Yeah. How could How could Ricardo help you, Tinka?
Yeah, I think great opportunities, especially also the sensual part. So animals don't show so much if they are afraid, stressed, or in pain or whatever. But with sensors, you know, it's a heartbeat, etc. And you could connect that all and have this agricultural system, but also our fish sensing boxes. I think we should talk.
Yeah,
I think we should talk.
Even like, you know, detecting if a specific species is found in a place, you know, you need good machine learning methods for not only detecting, but for classifying. This is a species, this is an individual of that specific species. So when we have this kind of technology available for scientists, we can keep track of, okay, that particular area is being recovered because I can identify that particular species in that location. So this is, for example, a case in which machine vision, machine learning, AI could help scientists to figure out what is going on in the environment.
Great, yeah. I'm looking at Olaf. Do you have a question from the audience?
Yeah, maybe let's see if somebody here in Impulse has a question for Ricardo. Oh, yes.
So, hello, good morning. So my name is Justin van der Hoofd. So I work at the bioinformatics group here. I have a question on, you saying we can use a lot of AI, machine learning to discover patterns and to kind of maybe find hypotheses. But one thing that is also good to realize is for a lot of people, these are black box approaches. And actually, if you look at deep learning approaches, they are in fact black box approaches. So do you also have a vision on the explainability of these approaches, or how do you see that?
Yes, this is definitely a hot topic in the AI community, how to make you know, the available technologies transparent in the sense that you can understand how decisions are being made, and we can, in such a way that we can trust, we can rely on the results provided. So I see this topic being investigated a lot recently by, you know, the AI community. I see a lot of opportunities in terms of defining a research agenda around this topic. You know, in our group, you know, the three professors, we do intend to define this as one of our topics for our research agenda in Wageningen. And I do believe that understanding and modeling system in which we can explain, you know, the results also depend on domain knowledge. And this is also something that we definitely should explore in Wageningen. So how we can benefit from this huge and rich domain knowledge to understand the AI results in such a way that we can trust them, and in such a way that we can say, okay, it makes sense, it's connected with our common understanding, you know, about the nature, about life, about food, you know, whatever domain we're talking about. So I think this is definitely a right research path to go.
So I'm a really fan of open science. So my group also tries to really, you know, open up the data, or that we from collaborators and really annotate it well. But if we use machine learning, we need training data, and the training data can be heavily biased, and then the results or the model will also get biased, right? So what is your vision on that? How can we ensure that when we use methods like AI or deep learning, that you know, this bias, that I mean, we've seen examples even on a national scale, toeslagenaffaire, etc., that where it really went wrong. So how can we avoid this, you think?
Well, again, you know, there is no easy answer for this question. You know, those are research topics that, you know, we from the computer science community, we are trying to tackle. And you know, handling, of course, there are statistical, mathematical models that are being proposed to handle these bias aspects. But I would like to tell you that there is more than only proposing technology that can benefit from training data. Okay, there are other ways of helping knowledge discovery which even does not rely on information being assigned to data. We can find patterns, we can identify trends without properly associating labels or annotations to data. So the field is vast. The opportunities are there, posed by society, posed by the existence of huge volumes of data, posing by our needs of relate to understanding what is going on in terms of these huge volumes. And we should
be aware of the bias.
Yeah, we need to be aware of that and find ways in terms of modeling, in terms of designing the AI systems in such a way that those problems are not really leading to misunderstanding, misinformation, and so on. And so those are the risks that we need to be aware of and try to fight against.
Yeah, and keep asking questions about them. Yeah, thank you for your questions in the audience. Before we go to our reporter, Jelle Visser, we will go back in time. We'll enjoy a little bit of history of Wageningen University. Anyone recognizes this? Did this during studies? Yeah? Oh, I see some hands, yeah. Let's move to our reporter, Jelle Visser. He is somewhere here at
And how did ik woon hier nu in Nederland, al lang eigenlijk. Do you mind if we do it in English? Because there's an international audience watching.
That is true.
So how did you end up in Wageningen? I guess 25 years ago?
25 years ago. Actually, it's quite interesting. How did I end up here? Okay, I do recall. I wanted to do my master's degree. I've got a background in architecture, and I wanted something to do more with the environment, like urban and regional planning, that kind of background. So I toured around Europe a little bit, trying to look for a really good university. Ended up here. I had a girlfriend then, who said, hey, there's a really good university in the Netherlands. So I came over here, checked it out, went actually to a couple of countries also around Europe, and this basically turned out to be the best, for the course which I wanted to study, which was environmental sciences. Yeah, so...
And how was it then How was it here then, 25 years ago in Wageningen?
Well, like looking around, I think a lot has changed, a lot has changed. But I do also have to confess, right, when I first came, I wasn't your, let's call it, typical student, like living in the student apartments and everything. I like the country, I like the people, and I really wanted to get, how would I say it, Occidental, really get into the native thing. So I wasn't staying on campus at that point. I got an apartment instead in Arnhem, and I was commuting already, so that I was able to meet more local people, and I just found the people really friendly, and I've been so friendly. Hey, I'm here, I stayed.
You stayed?
I stayed. I'm actually living here in the Netherlands since then, essentially, yeah.
And what happened after your study? Did you use your study in your job or?
All right. Not immediately, I have to admit. Not immediately, because from then I left. Actually, I went a completely different direction, which also had my attention. I really like IT and technology. So I got a consulting job with IBM to start off with. And from there, I really progressed into data sciences, advanced analytics. I'm doing right now quite a bit with artificial intelligence. But for me, it's like 25 years later, the circle has really come complete. Because look around you, it's all about being green, it's all about the environment now, it's all about sustainability. And I thought, look, I find myself in a unique position of having that environmental science background on sustainability and everything, but I've also built up a lot of experience in the data sciences, and this really is the time now to combine the two.
The dots are connected.
Exactly. And I'm here again. So I was actually just talking to the rector and I was like, I am so happy to see that we're now doing a whole lot more with digitalization. So this is an area actually we're going to have some more talks about because I want to really get involved in that area with the university. Yeah.
And what are you going to do today? Meeting old friends?
Well, actually I came in last night, so I spent the night with a friend of ours who lives also here in the neighborhood. Today we'll go through the programs. I know this afternoon there's also a session as part of the Wageningen day. There's a session that has to do with analytics also, right? And so I want to attend that. The idea is also to have lunch, and then later on, hey,
go with the flow.
We'll go with the flow. There are certain places definitely like old hangouts, we really want to visit again, and then after that, we'll just see what happens.
Have fun.
I will do. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Jelle Visser. Let's go to Remco. Remco, you are the artist in residence here at WUR since last year. So maybe for the audience, what does an artist in residence do? What do you do all day?
What do I do all day? Well, this residency is an assignment to tell the non-scientific people something about the protein transition research. So I was really allocated to protein transition.
Yeah. So they give you a call and they said, do you want to be our artist in residence and do something with the protein?
Yes, it was a really free assignment, which I was really happy about because it gave me a lot of artistic freedom and a lot of trust in that I would do something interesting with it.
Yeah.
And one of my first ideas was, can I learn something about protein transition by talking to some scientists who say they work on that? And I also searched for some scientists who I thought, you also work on protein transition, but you're not aware of it, I think, or you don't call it that way. So I tried to search for the scope of protein transition. And I also left marine biology a bit out of it, I must say.
I think you should stay another year
then
include the sea in it. Yeah.
But there's a small reference to it in a sound tour that I made, because that was the first thing I wanted to do. So there is an audio tour on the campus here that everybody can walk with his smartphone. And if you Google campus audio tour, protein transition, maybe add to it, then you will find it easily.
Yeah.
And so you can walk 24/7.
I think it's a great audio tour. I downloaded it and I walked around, so you should all do it. What will you learn when you do it?
I was trying to dive into the difficulties that people have. I really I wanted to give a picture of the Wageningen scientists, and I feel quite affected to the Wageningen mindset. Also the two people who I hear here, it really feels like you know what you're doing and you're bringing an optimist perspective and you're working with a good intention towards like a more sustainable planet and feeding the world is a really big opportunity. So I wanted actually to honor this huge task and this sort of relaxed optimism, working slowly and thinking like, how should I solve it? But also I got really worried when hearing about all these researches, because when I, for instance, talk about the larvae that Teun Veldkamp works with at Animal Science Group. He uses larvae to digest difficult waste streams, like harvests that are contaminated with fungus. And then the larvae of black soldier fly, they can digest the fungal toxins so that hens can eat it without getting sick, and then we can have the hens for a protein source in our food.
Yeah.
So you can upcycle the wasted harvests, which is also a climate adaptation, I think. But then when the microphone was off, or he thought that the microphone was off, I asked him, and so can we now stop giving our cows, can we stop giving them soy? And then he said, no, well, with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, this is going to be really hard because the soy is so cheap and it's so available. So I have these larvae. It could feed local waste streams to our local cattle. It could make the circle shorter. Maybe we could even use it for manure what's it called, overvloed. Recycling the manure that you have in surplus, and make food out of that. But we're not going to make it economically.
Yeah. So you found like all these scientists working really hard on the protein transition, great ideas, great opportunities, and then maybe we're stuck a little bit in society and we should do more with it.
Yeah, I was talking to a sociologist and she said we should really start seeing this as a system change and it's bigger than just some small solutions.
Yeah.
And some people say, the more optimistic people say, we're working on a lot of small solutions and all these solutions together, they will not be drops on a hot plate, as we say in Dutch, but they will merge together in a river and there's an underground river already streaming that we don't see yet, but it will all come together. And this perspective gives me hope.
Yeah.
But I also get really worried when I hear that a lot of really great inventions and good intentions with which people are working here don't really get mainstream yet, don't really touch the ground yet because of the entire system.
Yeah. We need a transition in the society and the legislation.
As well, yeah.
Especially also the legislation. It takes so long before you are allowed to do it, to make the stem.
Yeah. But you also worked on the xylophone, which is behind you.
Yes.
Which I think they look great. But you have to please tell us what the xylophone has to do with the protein transition.
Well, the first people I spoke to were the people who work in the Axis building, like food chemists and food technologists. And they do a lot of work now on replacing animal proteins with plant proteins.
Yeah.
And for some people, protein transition means only that, in sort of the public opinion.
Could you tell us with the xylophone? Could you maybe show us as well?
I asked a material specialist who works more on bioplastics and these kind of things, and also boards from Miscanthus, building materials, if he could invent with me a material based on an animal protein that makes sound, and then find a plant replacement with it.
Yeah.
And then he came up with the idea to reinvent bois d'Urcy, which is a material from the slaughterhouse waste in Paris. It's patented in 1865, this bois d'Urcy. And it's sort of the first bioplastic, just before bakelite took over. And it's made of cow's blood, compressed with sawdust in heat and a lot of pressure. And then we started reinventing this material, and it was quite easy because the recipe was sort of available online, and we did some tries, and we easily made a solid material from it that worked for sound bars, for a xylophone. So we call it the boviphone, which means cow sound. And then I thought, let's make a plant phone and search for plant alternatives for this. Because this protein, the cow's blood protein, is really easy to do what you want. And in food, it's also a challenge to make the plant proteins.
So one of them is the bovine one, and the other one is the plant
then I talked to Ingrid van der Meer, who works on, as Sjoukje Hermovara just said, like, do you know that duckweed will be on our menu? And I was really happy that duckweed worked really well as a replacement for the cow's blood. Yeah. So I just used fresh duckweed and smashed it in a food blender and compressed that with the sawdust. And then it after some trial and error, it gave the same kind of sound. So as we now know how to imitate meat, I also know in sound, in the realm of sound, how to imitate the sound of cow's blood.
Yeah. Shall we listen? Can you... and then find out if the sound is different or if it's similar? Or,
I will. Yeah? I pre-recorded some so that I can make it sound a bit nicer, and I have an accompanying track. Yeah. But I will first show them both.
Yeah. Great.
And then start the track and then play a bit of music with it.
Let's find out. This is how the protein transition can look like. Yeah, it's great. Or sound, sorry, sounds. Yeah. Remco de Kluizenaar, thank you. You also mentioned the audio tour. You can get a reception, you can get a small card at the registration desk. Maybe you already have it, so you can scan it and download the questions. Maybe one question from the audience?
Yeah. Anyone who has a question for Remco, our own Wageningen in-house artist?
Where they can buy your... Everyone wants it. No?
Any questions?
Okay. Then
I don't think so.
we're going to close off this first Wageningen Talks. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank my guests, Tinka Murk, Ricardo da Silva Torres and Remco de Kluizenaar. The next Wageningen Talks is at 1:30 p.m. Olaf, what will you do in the meantime?
We have some reporters walking around on campus right now, and we're going to have a look at Lotta Balvoort, who is talking to Patrick right now. He's here on the Wageningen Experience Day to reconnect with the campus and make connections.